There are times in life when we feel as though we've been sidelined, overlooked, or even rejected. Our talents, ideas, and dreams seem to be ignored while others around us seem to be thriving and advancing. It can be a painful experience, one that leaves us questioning our worth and purpose. But let me assure you, what feels like rejection is often divine protection. When God hides you, it is not to diminish you, but to preserve and prepare you for something far greater than you can imagine. Imagine a mother eagle caring for her young. When the eaglet is born, it is vulnerable and fragile, unable to fend for itself. The mother does not immediately send it soaring into the skies. Instead, she hides it within the safety of the nest, far away from predators and dangers. It's not because the eaglet is unworthy of the sky, but because it isn't yet ready to handle its challenges. Similarly, God shields us in times when we may not fully understand the dangers ahead or the weight of the responsibilities tied to our dreams. When we are hidden, it's natural to feel frustrated or even forgotten. We live in a world that celebrates visibility and instant success. We see others achieving milestones and receiving recognition, and we wonder why our own path seems to be moving at a slower pace. But God's timing is not like ours. What looks like a delay to us is, in reality, His intentional process of preparation. He hides us to protect the treasure within us, ensuring that it's not exposed prematurely. Consider the story of Moses. He spent the first 40 years of his life in the palace of Pharaoh, living in luxury and learning leadership. But after a rash decision led him to kill an Egyptian, Moses fled into the wilderness. He spent another 40 years in obscurity, tending sheep in Midian. To the outside world, it may have looked like Moses' story was over, but God was hiding him for a reason. During those years in the wilderness, Moses was being prepared to lead a nation. The same man who felt like a fugitive would later stand before Pharaoh and declare, "Let my people go." Hidden seasons are not about punishment, they are about preservation. God knows the strength of your calling and the size of your destiny, and He understands the process required to carry it. He also knows that exposure too early can be dangerous. Imagine if David had stepped into kingship without first spending years in the fields as a shepherd. The battles he fought there prepared him for Goliath, and the solitude gave him a heart of worship that would later sustain him as king. When God hides you, He is not just keeping you away from harm, He is also giving you time to develop the skills, wisdom, and character necessary for your purpose. The world celebrates talent, but God prioritizes character. Talent may open doors, but character keeps you in the room. Hidden seasons refine your character so that you are ready for the weight of the opportunities God has for you. In these times of hiddenness, it's essential to trust God's process. We must resist the urge to force ourselves into visibility before the appointed time. There's a reason why the greatest treasures, diamonds, gold, and pearls are all formed in hidden, pressurized places. The diamond must endure intense heat and pressure deep beneath the earth before it can shine. The same principle applies to us. The hiddenness is where transformation happens, where our rough edges are smoothed out, and where we are made ready to shine. It's also worth remembering that hidden seasons are not passive. They are not about sitting idly by, waiting for something to happen. They are seasons of preparation. While you may feel unseen, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events and aligning circumstances in your favor. And just as He is working, you must work too. Develop your gifts, sharpen your skills, and deepen your relationship with Him. David didn't waste his time in the fields. He used it to become an expert with a sling and to compose psalms that would bless generations. What you do in your hidden season determines how prepared you will be when God reveals you. One of the greatest challenges in hidden seasons is maintaining a heart of gratitude and trust. It's easy to become bitter or resentful, especially when you see others stepping into opportunities that you long for. But comparison is the enemy of contentment. Instead of focusing on what you lack, focus on what God is teaching you in the present. He is building something within you that is far greater than what you can see. When the time comes for God to reveal you, it will be undeniable. Just as He hid Moses for 40 years, but revealed him as the deliverer of Israel, He will bring you forth at the right moment. And when He does, the waiting, the frustration, and the hiddenness will all make sense. You will realize that His protection was His love in action, shielding you from premature exposure and preparing you for something extraordinary. So if you feel hidden today, do not despair. Instead, embrace this season as part of God's divine plan. Trust that He knows what He is doing. Rest in the knowledge that His timing is perfect, His protection is intentional, and His plans for you are greater than anything you could ever imagine. Hiddenness is not rejection, it is God's way of shaping you into all that He has called you to be. Preparation is one of the most critical aspects of any journey, and often it happens in hiddenness. In a world that constantly celebrates the visible and the immediate, it's easy to overlook the value of the unseen process. Yet the most significant growth occurs in moments when no one is watching. God, in His wisdom, uses these hidden seasons to prepare us for what He has planned. These times may feel isolating or unproductive, but they are foundational to your future. Think about the story of Joseph. Before he became a ruler in Egypt, he endured a series of hidden and challenging seasons. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. To an outsider, it may have seemed that Joseph's dreams were shattered. But every step of the way, God was preparing him. In Potiphar's house, Joseph learned leadership and responsibility. In prison, he developed resilience and the ability to interpret dreams. By the time he stood before Pharaoh, he was fully equipped for the position God had reserved for him. Hiddenness is where God works on your inner life. While the world measures success by outward appearances, God is concerned with what's happening in your heart. A farmer doesn't plant a seed and expect it to sprout instantly. Instead, he understands that the seed needs time beneath the soil where no one can see it. During this time, the seed develops roots, anchoring it for the growth that will soon become visible. Similarly, God uses hidden seasons to deepen your spiritual roots, ensuring that you are grounded enough to handle the fruit He has planned for your life. These seasons are often marked by preparation in ways you might not initially understand. God may place you in situations that seem unrelated to your dreams, but they are essential pieces of the puzzle. Take David, for example. Before he became a king, he was a shepherd tending sheep. That might seem like an insignificant role compared to leading a nation, but it was in those fields that David developed the skills and courage he would later need. He fought off lions and bears to protect his flock, a training ground for the moment he would face Goliath. His time as a shepherd also cultivated a heart of worship, which sustained him during his reign. Preparation in hiddenness also teaches patience and trust. When things don't happen on your timeline, it's easy to become frustrated or discouraged. But God's timing is perfect. He knows exactly when you are ready to step into your purpose. Rushing the process can lead to premature exposure, which often brings unnecessary challenges. Hiddenness allows you to grow at a pace that aligns with God's plan, ensuring that you are not just equipped for your calling, but also able to sustain it. It's important to recognize that hidden seasons are not about inactivity. They are a time to refine your skills, deepen your faith, and develop your character. Just because you are not visible doesn't mean you're not valuable. In fact, it's in these moments of hiddenness that God does some of His most transformative work. He is molding you, shaping you, and equipping you for what lies ahead. The hidden season is also a test of your faithfulness. Are you willing to remain diligent even when no one is watching? Are you committed to the process even when the results are not immediately visible? Your response during this time reveals a lot about your readiness for what's next. God often tests our faithfulness in small things before entrusting us with greater responsibilities. How you handle the hidden season determines how prepared you are for the season of visibility. Consider the analogy of a sculptor. When a sculptor works on a piece of marble, the early stages are rough and unrecognizable. To the untrained eye, it might seem like the sculptor is simply chipping away aimlessly. But every strike of the hammer is intentional, shaping the marble into a masterpiece. The final reveal only happens after countless hours of unseen work. In the same way, God is shaping you into a masterpiece during your hidden season. The process may be uncomfortable and the progress may seem slow, but every moment is purposeful. Hiddenness also protects you from unnecessary distractions. Visibility often comes with pressures and expectations that can pull you away from your focus. In hidden seasons, God shields you from these distractions, giving you space to grow without external interference. This time allows you to focus solely on Him and the work He is doing within you. One of the most challenging aspects of hiddenness is maintaining hope and vision. It's easy to lose sight of your dreams when they seem so far away. But remember, God's promises are never delayed, they're always on time. The dreams He has placed in your heart are not forgotten. In fact, He is using this season to prepare you for the very things He has promised. When the time comes for God to reveal you, it will be evident that the preparation was worth it. You will step into your calling with confidence, knowing that you are ready because you allowed God to work in you during the hidden season. The world may see the result, but you will know the process it took to get there. And that process will not only strengthen you, but also give you a testimony that can inspire and encourage others. So, if you find yourself in a season of hiddenness, embrace it. Lean into the preparation and trust that God is working behind the scenes. He is equipping you for something far greater than you can imagine. And when the time is right, He will reveal you not just for your benefit, but for His glory. Hiddenness is not a setback, it is a setup for the extraordinary. Hiddenness is not a place of stagnation, but a place of preparation. It is in the quiet, unseen moments that God builds the strength and resilience we need for future battles. Though it may feel like nothing significant is happening, this hidden season is often where the most critical work is being done. The challenges we face later in life require a depth of character, wisdom, and endurance that can only be cultivated in the hidden places. Consider the life of David. Before he stood before Goliath as a warrior, he was a shepherd tending to his father's sheep. To some, his role might have seemed insignificant, a boy with a staff, out in the wilderness with no recognition or apparent purpose. But this was no ordinary season, it was a divine training ground. In the solitude of the fields, David learned to protect his flock from lions and bears. He honed his skills with a sling, an unlikely weapon that would later deliver a giant into his hands. Every encounter, every moment of isolation was preparing David for the monumental task of leading a nation and confronting enemies far greater than any he had faced before. Hidden seasons are about building strength for battles you have yet to see. They are where God equips you not just with the physical or technical skills you'll need, but also with the spiritual endurance to withstand the pressures of visibility. Battles are not won on the battlefield alone, they are won in the preparation beforehand. Without the private victories in the wilderness, there can be no public triumphs in the open. David's ability to face Goliath with courage and precision was birthed in the quiet, hidden moments where no one else was watching. In the hidden places, God also refines your perspective. Challenges may come in these seasons that test your patience, your faith, and your commitment to the process. But through these tests, He strengthens your character. Character is often the deciding factor in whether someone sustains success after achieving it. Talent may take you to the top, but character keeps you there. Hiddenness allows God to shape your heart so that when the battles of success come, the battles of pride, pressure, and temptation, you are strong enough to overcome them. Joseph is another example of someone whose hidden season prepared him for future battles. Betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, Joseph found himself in Potiphar's house, serving faithfully in obscurity. Even when falsely accused and thrown into prison, he continued to excel, interpreting dreams and demonstrating leadership. These hidden years were not wasted. They were a time when God was building Joseph's resilience, his wisdom, and his trust in divine timing. By the time Joseph was elevated to second in command in Egypt, he had the strength and perspective needed to handle both the power and the responsibility of his position. Without the hidden years, Joseph might not have been ready for the weight of his calling. One of the most profound aspects of hidden seasons is that they teach us to rely on God's strength rather than our own. When we face battles in public, there is often a temptation to rely on the validation or approval of others. But hiddenness strips us of those distractions. It's a place where we learn to draw strength from God alone. Like a tree that grows its roots deep into the soil during a storm, we grow stronger in faith, prayer, and dependence on Him when we are unseen. These spiritual roots anchor us, ensuring that when the storms of life come, we are not easily shaken. Hiddenness also cultivates humility. It reminds us that the battles ahead are not ours alone, but belong to the Lord. When we understand this, we are less likely to be overwhelmed by the size of the challenges we face. We know that the same God who strengthened us in the hidden season will fight for us in the open one. David didn't face Goliath with arrogance, he faced him with faith, declaring that the battle belonged to the Lord. That confidence was built in the hidden place, where he had already seen God's faithfulness time and again. Another benefit of hidden seasons is that they allow us to focus without distraction. When we are unseen, we can dedicate ourselves fully to the process of growth. This is the time to sharpen our skills, expand our knowledge, and deepen our relationship with God. It's a time to confront weaknesses and build endurance. The strength we gain in hiddenness is not just for us, it's also for the people we are called to serve. Our battles are rarely only about us. They are often tied to the destinies of others who will benefit from our victories. The story of Esther provides yet another example. Before she became queen and saved her people, Esther went through a season of preparation in the palace, hidden from the world. During this time, she learned what was required of her role and developed the strength to approach the king on behalf of her people, a bold and risky move. Her hidden season gave her the courage and wisdom needed for a battle that would change the course of history. If you find yourself in a hidden season, know that God is not wasting this time. He is building within you the strength, resilience, and character you will need for the battles ahead. Though it may feel frustrating or even unfair, trust that He sees the bigger picture. Every challenge, every moment of waiting, and every lesson learned is part of His plan to prepare you. When the time comes, you will understand why the hidden season was necessary. You will face your battles with confidence, knowing that God has already equipped you. The strength He has built in you during this time will not only sustain you, but also enable you to fulfill your purpose and glorify Him in the process. Trust the hiddenness, for it is where God builds the strength you'll need to walk into victory. Timing is one of the most significant aspects of life, yet it's one of the hardest things to fully understand. In our human perspective, we often want things to happen on our schedule. We set timelines, make plans, and expect our goals to unfold in a certain way. But God's timing is entirely different. It is perfect, precise, and purposeful, even when it doesn't align with our own expectations. When we trust His timing, we position ourselves to experience the fullness of His plan in ways we could never orchestrate on our own. Think of a farmer who plants seeds in the spring. He does not expect to harvest them the next day or even the next week. Instead, he understands that the crops need time to grow, mature, and be ready for harvest. If the farmer were to rush the process and harvest too early, the crops would be underdeveloped and useless. In the same way, God allows seasons of waiting in our lives because He knows what needs to be developed in us before we are ready for the next step. Waiting on God's timing requires patience, and patience is often tested in the hidden and quiet seasons. These are the times when it seems like nothing is happening and the promise feels far away. But just because you can't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't being made. It's during these waiting periods that God works behind the scenes, orchestrating events, aligning people, and preparing opportunities that will reveal themselves at just the right time. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, yet years went by without a child. In their impatience, they tried to take matters into their own hands, leading to complications that could have been avoided. But when the time was right, God's time, Sarah conceived Isaac, the child of promise. What seemed like a delay was actually God's perfect timing to fulfill His covenant and demonstrate His faithfulness. God's timing is not just about what He wants to do in your life, but also about how He wants to prepare you for it. Sometimes the delay isn't because the opportunity isn't ready, it's because you aren't ready. He knows what you need to develop, whether it's strength, wisdom, humility, or endurance, so that when the door opens, you can walk through it confidently and successfully. The life of Joseph is another powerful example. God gave Joseph dreams of greatness, showing him that he would one day lead and that others would bow before him. But before that dream was fulfilled, Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment. It would have been easy for Joseph to assume that God had forgotten him or that the timing was off. Yet every step of Joseph's journey was preparing him for the fulfillment of that dream. By the time Joseph was elevated to second in command in Egypt, he was equipped with the leadership skills, integrity, and humility necessary to handle the responsibility. The timing was perfect not just for Joseph, but for the preservation of his family and the entire nation. Waiting for God's timing also builds trust. When things don't happen when we expect or desire them to, it challenges us to rely on God rather than on our own understanding. Trusting His timing means surrendering control and acknowledging that His ways are higher than ours. It's an act of faith to believe that even in the waiting, God is working all things together for our good. David exemplifies this trust beautifully. Anointed as king while still a young shepherd, David didn't ascend to the throne immediately. Instead, he spent years fleeing from Saul, hiding in caves, and leading a band of misfits. To the untrained eye, it may have looked like David's anointing was delayed or even derailed. But in reality, God was using that time to prepare David's heart and leadership skills. By the time David finally became king, he was ready to lead with wisdom and strength, having learned to depend entirely on God through his years in the wilderness. One of the most comforting aspects of God's timing is that it's always for our benefit. While we may not understand it in the moment, hindsight often reveals why certain things had to happen or not happen at specific times. A delay in one area might be God's way of protecting us from something we can't yet see. A closed door might redirect us to an opportunity that is far better than the one we were pursuing. When the time comes for God's plan to unfold, it often happens suddenly and powerfully. The waiting can feel long and drawn out, but the fulfillment of the promise can happen in an instant. Think about how Jesus' ministry began. For 30 years, he lived in relative obscurity, working as a carpenter and preparing for his purpose. But when the time came for his ministry to begin, it happened with an urgency and impact that changed the world. His timing was perfect, fulfilling prophecies and aligning with God's redemptive plan for humanity. If you are in a season of waiting, let this be an encouragement to you. God is never late. He knows the desires of your heart. And he has a plan for your life that is greater than anything you could imagine. The waiting is not wasted time. It is a season of preparation, growth, and alignment with his purpose. Lean into it. Use this time to develop your faith, hone your skills, and deepen your relationship with him. When the timing is right, God will bring everything together in a way that makes sense. And when he does, you'll see that every moment of waiting was worth it. His timing isn't just good, it's perfect. Trust him even when the process is unclear, because the one who holds time in his hands is working everything out for your good and his glory. Hidden seasons, though often misunderstood and even resented, are far from wasted. These times of quiet, obscurity, or waiting are among the most purposeful seasons in life. While they might feel frustrating or unproductive, hidden seasons are where God does some of his most profound work in and through us. They are not detours but essential parts of the journey, shaping us in ways that are critical for the future he has planned. In a world that constantly glorifies visibility, quick results, and recognition, it's easy to feel overlooked or left behind when you find yourself in a hidden season. But hiddenness does not mean insignificance. Just because your efforts, talents, or dreams aren't seen by others doesn't mean they lack value. God often uses these times to prepare you in ways that only he can see. What feels like waiting is actually working. What seems like stagnation is often transformation. Consider the process of building a strong foundation for a house. Before any walls are erected or a roof is installed, there is significant work that happens below the surface. The foundation is laid with precision, and its strength determines the stability of the entire structure. Hidden seasons are like laying a foundation. They are not glamorous, and the results may not be immediately visible, but they are absolutely essential for what's to come. Without a strong foundation, anything you build will eventually collapse under pressure. The story of Moses is a prime example of how God uses hidden seasons to prepare someone for greatness. Before he became the deliverer of Israel, Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep. To the casual observer, those years might have seemed wasted for someone who had once lived in the palace of Pharaoh. But God was using that time to shape Moses into a leader who could shepherd an entire nation. The wilderness was not a punishment, it was preparation. Moses learned patience, humility, and reliance on God, qualities that were crucial for his future calling. Hidden seasons are also where character is forged. It's one thing to have talent or ambition, but without the right character, success can be short-lived. God often uses these times to refine us, revealing areas of weakness that need to be strengthened and attitudes that need to be adjusted. Joseph's life illustrates this beautifully. Betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, Joseph spent years in Potiphar's house and prison before stepping into his role as a ruler in Egypt. During those hidden years, Joseph learned integrity, resilience, and faithfulness. By the time he was elevated to a position of authority, he had the maturity to handle the weight of leadership. Hidden seasons also teach us the value of faithfulness in the small things. When no one is watching and there's no applause or recognition, will you still give your best? These times reveal whether you are working for human approval or for God's glory. David's years as a shepherd were a hidden season where he proved his faithfulness. He cared for his flock with diligence, fighting off lions and bears to protect them. Those small, unseen acts of bravery prepared him for the moment he would face Goliath and eventually lead a nation as king. Another aspect of hidden seasons is that they allow you to grow without the pressure of external scrutiny. When you are in the spotlight, every decision, action, or mistake is magnified. But in hiddenness, God gives you the freedom to develop, learn, and make mistakes in a safe environment. It's a time to build confidence in your abilities and deepen your trust in Him without the distractions of public opinion. Like a seed buried in the soil, growth happens quietly and unseen. But when the time is right, that seed will break through the surface, bearing fruit for all to see. Hidden seasons are also deeply personal. They are times when God draws you closer to Himself, teaching you to rely on His voice and direction above all else. In a world filled with noise and competing agendas, these seasons are an opportunity to hear Him clearly and align your heart with His purposes. Jesus Himself experienced a hidden season before beginning His public ministry. For 30 years, He lived a quiet life, working as a carpenter and growing in wisdom and stature. When the time came for His ministry to begin, He was fully prepared, having spent years in communion with the Father. It's important to remember that hidden seasons are temporary. They may feel endless, but God's timing is perfect. When the time comes, He will bring you into the fullness of His plan, and the preparation you experienced in the hidden season will be evident. Esther's story is a testament to this. Before she became queen and saved her people, she spent a season of preparation in the palace, away from public view. When the moment arrived for her to act, she was ready, having been shaped for such a time as this. If you are in a hidden season right now, do not despise it. Embrace it as a gift, knowing that God is working in ways you may not yet understand. Use this time to grow, to learn, and to draw closer to Him. Focus on developing your character, honing your skills, and being faithful in the small things. Trust that He sees you even when others don't, and that He is preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. Hidden seasons are not wasted. They are where God shapes you, strengthens you, and prepares you for the purpose He has placed on your life. When the time comes for Him to reveal you, you'll understand that every moment of waiting was worth it. You'll see that His plans were always for your good and His glory, and you'll be ready to step into them with confidence and faith. Revelation is the moment when what has been hidden or prepared in private is unveiled to the world, and it always serves a greater purpose to bring glory to God. This is not merely about personal success, recognition, or fulfillment. It is about showcasing God's power, wisdom, and faithfulness in and through your life. When God reveals His work, His timing, and His purpose, it becomes clear that only He could orchestrate such a perfect unfolding of events. When God brings something to light, it is never arbitrary. It is an intentional act to demonstrate His sovereignty and to advance His divine plan. Think about the creation story in Genesis. God didn't create the world all at once, but revealed it in stages. Light was separated from darkness, land appeared from the waters, and life filled the earth in an order that showed His meticulous and purposeful nature. At each stage of creation, God saw that it was good. His revelation of creation wasn't rushed, it unfolded in a way that reflected His glory, power, and wisdom. Similarly, when God reveals His work in your life, it is done in such a way that others can see His hand clearly. The story of Jesus turning water into wine at the wedding in Cana is a powerful illustration of how revelation brings glory to God. Before Jesus performed this miracle, the jars of water were just that, water. But when he chose to act, the transformation of water into wine became a revelation of his divine authority. The miracle wasn't just about solving a temporary problem, it was about revealing his glory. The disciples who were present to witness this believed in him more deeply because of what they saw. This is what revelation does. It draws people closer to God, opening their eyes to his power and love. God's timing in revelation is crucial. If something is revealed too soon, it may not have the desired impact, and its purpose may be misunderstood. Revelation often comes after a season of preparation and hiddenness, because God wants his work to be undeniable. When Joseph's dreams were finally fulfilled and he stood as a leader in Egypt, it was evident that only God could have orchestrated such a rise from betrayal and imprisonment. Joseph's position was not just for his benefit, but to preserve the lives of countless others during a time of famine. Through Joseph's journey, God's faithfulness and providence were revealed, and he received the glory. Revelation also carries a responsibility. When God brings his work in your life to light, it is not for your personal elevation, but to serve his purpose. This truth can be seen in the story of Esther. Her hidden season of preparation culminated in a moment of revelation when she revealed her identity as a Jew to the king and used her position to save her people. Esther's revelation wasn't about her bravery or cleverness. It was a testament to God's timing and sovereignty. Through her, God's glory was made evident as he delivered his people from destruction. A key aspect of revelation is that it often exceeds human expectations. What God reveals is usually greater than what we could have imagined during the season of waiting. Ephesians 3:20 reminds us that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. When God unveils his plans, they are so extraordinary that they point directly to him. This is why it's important to trust his process, even when it feels long or uncertain. The outcome will not just meet your expectations, it will glorify God in a way that leaves no room for doubt about his involvement. Revelation is also deeply personal, yet it impacts others. When God's work is revealed in your life, it often becomes a source of encouragement and inspiration to those around you. Your story becomes a testimony of his faithfulness, and through it, others are drawn to him. Think about David's rise to kingship. His journey from shepherd to king wasn't just about fulfilling his destiny, it was about revealing God's power and purpose to the entire nation of Israel. When David defeated Goliath, it wasn't merely a personal victory, it was a demonstration of God's strength working through him. The revelation of David's anointing as king brought hope and confidence to the people, showing that God was with them. However, revelation is not the end of the story, it is often the beginning of a new chapter. When God reveals his plans, it signals a transition into a season of action and responsibility. With the unveiling comes the need to steward what God has entrusted to you. It requires humility to remember that the revelation is not about your glory, but his. Jesus, after his baptism, was publicly revealed as the Son of God, yet he immediately began his ministry, serving others, teaching, and ultimately sacrificing himself for humanity. His revelation pointed entirely to the Father, demonstrating perfect obedience and love. If you are waiting for God's revelation in your life, trust that it will come at the right time and in the right way. The hidden season you may be experiencing now is not wasted. It is preparing you for the moment when God's work will be unveiled. When that moment comes, it will not only fulfill his purpose for you, but also reveal his greatness to those around you. Revelation is a divine act that magnifies God's glory. It takes what was hidden, what was prepared in secret, and brings it into the light for all to see. It is a reminder that his plans are higher than ours and that his timing is always perfect. When God reveals his work, he does so in a way that leaves no doubt about who deserves the credit. Through revelation, he draws hearts closer to him, demonstrating his faithfulness and love to a watching world. Trust the process, trust His timing. And when the moment of revelation comes, give Him the glory, for it is His and His alone.